Sometimes love speaks in whispers rather than shouts. There is a presence beside you that feels deeper than words allow, a care so subtle it may pass unnoticed, yet it moves with the rhythm of your life. Many do not realize the depth of their own heart. The soul can harbor feelings that the mind cannot fully name. Often, the deepest currents of affection flow beneath the surface, hidden from both the person who feels them and the one they care for. Human emotions are rarely as transparent as they seem. They dwell in layers, some visible and some profoundly unconscious. There are feelings that exist in a space beyond immediate awareness, lodged in the shadow of the psyche, influencing actions, choices, and behaviors without conscious acknowledgement. A person may be more in love than they themselves realize, and yet their awareness lags behind the truth of their heart. This is because the human psyche is structured in such a way that not every impulse, desire, or attachment is immediately recognized. Feelings can dwell in the liminal space between thought and instinct, expressing themselves in subtle ways that often escape verbal articulation. The unconscious mind communicates in symbols, gestures, and patterns rather than direct statements. Someone may not consciously declare their devotion, yet their actions can betray a quiet but persistent emotional investment. These may appear as small, seemingly ordinary behaviors, a remembered detail, a spontaneous message, a willingness to be present at moments that matter. Each act carries meaning beyond its immediate appearance, forming a language of love that speaks quietly to those attuned to it. The difficulty lies in the fact that these signals are easy to overlook, easily dismissed as routine or coincidental. Only careful observation and reflection reveal the depth of what is being communicated. The shadow, in this sense, is not merely the repository of what is hidden or repressed in a negative sense. It is the part of the psyche where undeclared feelings reside. These are not necessarily forbidden or shameful emotions. They are often simply unrecognized by the conscious mind. A person may not even fully understand the intensity of their own affection, because the psyche often requires time, reflection, or external prompts to bring latent feelings into clarity. When someone exhibits care, attentiveness, or protective behaviors without explicitly naming their feelings, it is often a shadow expression of love, real, significant, and meaningful, yet unformulated in words. Moreover, the unconscious is never entirely silent. It finds ways to express itself, often through patterns, repetitions, or synchronicities that may seem coincidental but are deeply significant. A glance, a pause, a willingness to endure minor discomforts for another's benefit. These are all subtle forms of communication that reveal a depth of feeling the conscious mind has yet to grasp. To be able to recognize these signs requires a sensitivity to nuance, a willingness to look beyond what is said and focus on what is enacted. The patterns themselves become a map to understanding a person's inner emotional landscape. It is also essential to recognize that love in the unconscious is not constrained by the expectations of the external world. It does not seek immediate acknowledgement, reward, or validation. It exists quietly, persistently, and often without overt expression. For this reason, the person who is more in love than they realize may behave in ways that seem contradictory or hesitant. Their heart has moved before their mind has caught up, and their unconscious devotion manifests in gestures that may appear subtle, inconsistent, or even puzzling. Ultimately, the shadow of unconscious feelings teaches us that emotional reality is not always immediately visible. Understanding this allows us to approach human relationships with greater patience, empathy, and attentiveness. When we recognize that love can dwell unseen, influencing behavior without conscious articulation, we are able to perceive the richness of human connection in its quietest forms. By observing, reflecting, and attuning to these subtle signals, we gain insight into a truth that is as profound as it is often hidden. Love exists not only in declaration but in presence, pattern, and the subtle rhythm of attention that speaks from the depths of the soul. Life often communicates not through direct words, but through patterns, repetitions, and moments that feel charged with meaning. There is a subtle intelligence in the world, a way in which events align to reveal truths that are not immediately accessible to conscious understanding. When someone is more in love than they realize, the universe may provide signs that speak to this hidden depth. These signs are not mere coincidences. They carry significance that, when perceived, can illuminate what is otherwise invisible. Life has a language, and it is written in moments, gestures, and alignments that invite attention and reflection. Recognizing these signs requires a sensitivity to patterns, a willingness to see connections where the casual eye might see randomness. Small, repeated actions often serve as the clearest expressions of feeling that has not yet found verbal form. It might be the timing of messages, the consistency of gestures, or a pattern of attentiveness that emerges in subtle ways over time. A person may not consciously understand the depth of their own attachment, but the behaviors of the heart manifest nonetheless, guiding those who are attentive toward the underlying truth. The repeated appearance of meaningful acts, whether in care, presence, or sacrifice, serves as a language of the unconscious, communicating the love that has not yet been fully articulated. Each recurrence is a form of synchronicity, an alignment of inner feeling with outer expression, revealing meaning that is often more profound than words alone could convey. These patterns are not limited to deliberate actions. They can appear in the coincidences of shared experiences, in moments of timing that feel almost fated, or in events that seem to orchestrate themselves around connection. The human mind may struggle to make sense of these alignments at first, dismissing them as chance. Yet, there is a depth to these repetitions, a subtle order to the events that allows insight into the hidden workings of affection. The world itself becomes a mirror to unconscious feelings, reflecting the emotional landscape of the heart in ways that invite perception and understanding. It is important to note that recognizing these signs requires more than passive observation. It demands attentiveness, reflection, and a willingness to perceive beyond the obvious. One must cultivate the capacity to see meaning in what appears mundane, to discern significance in patterns that at first glance seem random. This requires patience, and a kind of psychological acuity that allows one to distinguish between mere coincidence and the deeper currents of emotion flowing beneath the surface. When we attune ourselves to these signs, we engage in an active dialogue with life itself, where the unconscious expressions of the heart are revealed through the orchestrated coincidences of the world. Furthermore, these meaningful signs are often humble and quiet, yet they carry profound insight. They may not announce themselves dramatically. Instead, they reveal themselves gradually in subtle consistencies that over time create a narrative of devotion. The repeated presence of care, the timing of attentions, the instinctive responsiveness to needs. These are all forms of communication that speak more authentically than words often can. By paying attention to these signals, we are able to perceive emotional truths that might otherwise remain hidden, gaining insight not only into the heart of another but into the interwoven fabric of human experience itself. Ultimately, the recognition of meaningful signs teaches us to honor the subtlety of love and to trust the intelligence of life's patterns. It reminds us that affection often manifests in ways that escape immediate notice, and that the depth of feeling can be revealed through careful observation of recurring acts and moments of synchrony. In this way, the world becomes a teacher, offering guidance and illumination for those willing to perceive the hidden language of the heart, revealing truths that the conscious mind alone may not yet apprehend. Human relationships are often mirrors reflecting not only what exists between two people, but also what resides within each of them. When someone harbors feelings they may not fully recognize, they can unknowingly project these emotions onto others, shaping perception in ways that obscure the truth. Projection is a natural psychological mechanism. It allows us to see qualities, desires, or fears that we have not yet consciously integrated in ourselves, and it often distorts the reality of what another person is feeling. A person who is more in love than they realize may unconsciously transfer aspects of their own emotional depth onto the other, interpreting actions, words, or gestures through the lens of feelings they have not fully admitted. Understanding this dynamic provides profound insight into the subtle ways love can manifest beneath conscious awareness. Projection does not merely misrepresent reality, it highlights the emotional truths that remain unrecognized. When someone reacts strongly to your presence, seeks connection, or notices details you may consider trivial, it can be a reflection of their inner state, an echo of emotions that have not yet been fully articulated. Often, these projections are not deliberate or manipulative, they arise organically from the unconscious. The heart, even before the mind fully acknowledges it, finds ways to express itself, and these expressions are frequently interpreted through the lens of projection. Observing them carefully can reveal patterns, indicating that the unseen affection is real, persistent, and meaningful. At the same time, Projection teaches us that emotional perception is never entirely objective. We see others not solely as they are, but filtered through our own internal world. This means that understanding another's hidden love requires a delicate balance. We must discern which signals are reflections of their feelings and which are shaped by our own expectations, fears, or desires. Developing this discernment allows us to perceive the truth behind subtle actions and gestures. By cultivating awareness, we can recognize the traces of love that are expressed indirectly through attentiveness, care, or repeated patterns of behavior, rather than through overt declaration. Inner recognition plays a complementary role in this process. It is the conscious acknowledgement of what the unconscious has already been expressing. When we observe repeated gestures, subtle attentions, or patterns of presence, we are given the opportunity to translate the unconscious language of the heart into conscious understanding. This is not a matter of forcing the mind to interpret, but of gently attending to the nuances of behavior and circumstance, allowing the inner truth to emerge naturally. By doing so, we integrate the unconscious feelings into awareness, bridging the gap between what is felt and what is recognized. Love that exists in the unconscious often seeks expression in subtle, consistent ways. A person may not say, "I love you" directly, yet their behaviors, attentive listening, remembering small details, prioritizing your needs, offering support quietly, reveal an underlying devotion. These expressions, however, are easily overlooked if we are not attuned to the signals, or if we interpret them solely through surface appearances. The key lies in developing sensitivity to the unconscious expressions of affection, recognizing that love does not always arrive fully formed in words. It often arrives first in acts, timing, and presence. Ultimately, projection and inner recognition reveal a profound truth about human connection. We are both perceivers and participants in the language of the heart. By understanding the ways unconscious feelings are projected and learning to consciously recognize these signals, we gain insight into the depth of emotional life, both in ourselves and in others. We come to understand that love often exists quietly, shaping behaviors and interactions before it finds the clarity of conscious articulation. Attentive observation, reflection, and awareness allow us to perceive this hidden devotion, to honor it, and to respond with the understanding that bridges the seen and unseen, the conscious and unconscious, the expressed and the unspoken. Awareness is the bridge between what is hidden and what is revealed, between the unconscious currents of emotion and the conscious understanding of the self and others. Often, people carry feelings they have not fully recognized, and those feelings manifest subtly in behavior, presence, and attention. To perceive these hidden layers requires not only careful observation, but also a willingness to integrate what is seen into conscious understanding. Integration is not merely recognition, it is the active process of connecting the inner truth of one's own perception with the patterns and gestures of another. Through awareness, the hidden language of the heart becomes legible, and the subtle expressions of affection, care, or devotion can be understood in their full significance. When someone is more in love than they realize, their emotions often remain partially unconscious. The mind may resist acknowledging the intensity of feeling, while the heart acts out these emotions in ways that are quiet, indirect, or even contradictory. Awareness allows us to perceive these subtle cues without judgment or expectation. It is a practice of attentive observation, of noticing recurring gestures, moments of attentiveness, and patterns of care that might otherwise be dismissed as ordinary. Through conscious recognition, these small actions are revealed as expressions of deeper emotional truths. Awareness transforms the ordinary into the meaningful, allowing us to see the presence of love where it might otherwise go unnoticed. Integration requires courage because it asks us to confront the complexity of the human psyche. Feelings are rarely simple or neatly categorized. A person may feel joy and fear, desire and hesitation, attachment and uncertainty simultaneously. Observing these conflicting currents in another requires a readiness to accept the full spectrum of their humanity. By embracing this complexity, we move beyond superficial interpretation and open ourselves to the authentic truth of human emotion. Awareness becomes a lens that clarifies the unseen, revealing the richness of connection that exists beneath surface interactions. Moreover, awareness is not only about understanding the other, it is also a path to understanding oneself. When we notice the subtle signs of another's affection, we encounter reflections of our own expectations, projections, and emotional responses. Integration happens as we differentiate between what belongs to us and what belongs to the other, acknowledging the influence of our own perceptions while remaining open to the reality of their feelings. In this process, we learn to balance empathy with discernment, presence with reflection, and intuition with observation. Awareness becomes a tool for navigating the delicate interplay between conscious and unconscious, self and other, perception and truth. The process of integration through awareness also illuminates the power of timing and patience. Hidden emotions often unfold gradually, revealing themselves in consistent patterns rather than sudden declarations. To perceive them fully, one must cultivate attentiveness over time, observing repeated gestures and the subtle rhythms of behavior. Integration is the acknowledgement that love may exist quietly, beneath layers of hesitation, fear, or unrecognized desire, and that understanding it requires both time and mindful attention. The smallest acts, remembered detail and instinctive presence, a gentle consistency, carry profound meaning when observed with awareness. Ultimately, the practice of awareness allows us to bring unconscious truth into the light of conscious understanding. It is a pathway to clarity, compassion, and connection. By integrating the subtle signals of hidden love into our perception, we honor the depth of feeling that exists beyond words, gestures, or declarations. Awareness teaches us to perceive what is real, even when it is understated, and to respond not from assumption or expectation, but from informed understanding. In this way, integration through awareness transforms the hidden into the known, the unseen into the recognized, and the unconscious expression of love into a conscious and meaningful reality.